Well, the federal government is back to work today. And I've been monitoring to see what was going to happen in the legislature. So last week, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition, said he was going to challenge Trudeau on the carbon tax. So just to get you up to date, currently, the Liberal government are in power. However, they have a minority government. That means they don't have enough seats to get majority vote when they're trying to pass legislation. But they had been teaming up with the NDP and had a sort of signed deal with the NDP. However, that fell through last week. The NDP said they were going to go against Pierre and not vote in line with him. And more specifically, leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, said he would vote against the carbon tax. So we were waiting to hear about what was going to happen today, if Pierre Poilievre was going to do a vote of no confidence or not. So they've been talking about the carbon tax. So question period started. But the last time they were in question period was in June. So we haven't really heard from our federal MPs in the legislature or in the Parliament. In the Parliament. I'm confusing provincial and federal. So we hadn't really heard from them since last June. So let's see and hear what went on between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau. And I will say, if you're anything like me, you might have a hard time listening to Justin Trudeau. But let's hear what they had to say here.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up. And now he wants a 300% carbon tax hike, all the way up to 61 cents a litre. Why not let Canadians choose a common-sense conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The opposition has spent any time listening to Canadians over the summer, he would have heard that they need solutions. They need answers to the challenges they're facing. That's not what he's offering. Indeed, he doesn't care about Canadians. He just cares about himself and his own political interests. We're going to keep focused on doing the things that he refuses to do, whether it's him voting against dental care, whether it's him voting against child care, whether it's him voting against a national school food program. We're going to still deliver the things that matter to Canadians, like food in kids' bellies, child care spaces, and supports for seniors to go to the dentist, many of them first time in years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Children are hungrier than ever after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. In fact, 25% of them are not getting enough food, and we now know why. A carbon tax fraud has been perpetrated by this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, who kept secret Environment Canada documents that showed that the carbon tax was blowing a $25 billion hole in our economy. Our economy per capita is smaller today than it was 10 years ago, during which time the American economy has grown by 19%. Instead of a reckless plan to hike the tax to 61 cents a litre, why not allow Canadians to vote to axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. But here's the news flash for the Conservative leader.
I think he meant axe the tax.
Money. And what would cost the most money to Canadians at all is his do-nothing climate plan.
That's right.
In this flash, when the Toronto subway gets flooded, it costs money. Newsflash, when forest fires hit communities across this country, it costs Canadians money to rebuild. When you have droughts that hit farmers and agriculturists across this country, it costs money. What doesn't cost money is putting money in 8 out of 10 of the money of Canadians' pockets with the Canada Carbon Rebate to support their families and fight climate change.
I'm going to pause this for a second. I just want to say something about that. They keep saying that. They keep saying you're getting more than it's costing. Maybe when you look at what you're paying for gas, but when you look at the increased cost of everything, I think they want to forget that in order to get groceries, it has to be shipped. So whoever ships anything in Canada costs more because of the carbon tax. The cost of living costs more because of the carbon tax. But they seem to want to forget that. They want to pretend that you get way more. But I think anyone who's living in current day reality knows that cost of living is way higher. Most people can't even afford to get by. They can't afford groceries. Well, guess what? The biggest cost in groceries is transportation. So, and if transportation goes up because of the carbon tax, the cost of groceries goes up. But they conveniently want to ignore that fact.
The opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just proved my point. His tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts. All it does is create more poverty. This also from a high-flying, high-taxing, high-carbon hypocrite who flew 92,000 kilometers in a fuel-guzzling, tax-funded private jet while he taxes single moms and seniors for heating their homes. Now, carbon tax Carney wants him to put the tax back on home heating oil. Will he reject carbon tax Carney and instead allow Canadians to choose tax the tax?
That particular story just came out recently. Here, let's see if we can find it. So here's the story if you haven't heard about it. So climate hypocrite Trudeau burns up 182,000 kilometers in flights, with half coming over the past 3 months alone. So they talk about carbon tax and climate change and carbon causing climate change, which is a discussion for another day. I'm one of those who believes that carbon is plant food and we all need it on Earth, and we've had higher carbon content in the past. That's why you had bigger trees, all of that. But anyways, is there pollution happening? Yes, I think our plastic polluting the ocean is a much greater risk. Can we do a better job even at capturing the carbon? Yes. But the thing is, Canada does a better job at capturing the pollution from the oil that we produce than anywhere in the world. However, Trudeau wants us to stop producing oil, which means the oil that's getting produced to feed the rest of the world will be less clean oil. So places like Saudi Arabia. But they conveniently want to forget that. Instead, we could be producing the cleanest, best oil to feed the world, and the planet would be better off for it. But no, Trudeau doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want better Canadian oil to be used. I honestly, sometimes I believe if he just wants to destroy our country. But anyways, we'll go back to the other story. We'll keep listening here.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader doesn't believe in climate change, and that's why he has a do-nothing plan to fight climate change. It would cost Canadians money and challenge the future we're building for our kids. Our plan, with the Canada Carbon Rebate, puts more dollars in 8 out of 10 Canadians' pockets right across the country, supports the middle class and people working hard to join it, while delivering the kinds of investments that are going to grow our economy and reduce emissions at the same time. This is a responsible climate plan that fights climate change and supports Canadians. He wants to do nothing. He wants to hurt Canadians.
See, that in itself is not even factually true. Pierre Poilievre actually believes in climate change and has policies to change and help with climate change. I don't think that we are capable, by taxing the population, causing inflation, that we're going to fight that. I think our resources would be better met to tackle what's the result of climate change. So if that means more resources to fight forest fires, or if that means, and even that, I don't think forest fires are caused by climate change. We've had forest fires our entire life. I think it's a natural process that happens in nature. 200, 300, 500 years ago, we still have forest fires. I think the problem more is you have a lot of forest fires that are caused by humans right now, and that's a very big and real problem. But if you go back and look in history, forest fires would happen. We have thunderstorm, and that, when you have lightning that hits the ground, that can cause forest fires. So I just find it hilarious that they just blame every natural disaster on climate change, as if these natural disasters didn't happen before we started using oil and gas. So, but anyways, that's beyond the point. This exchange makes me roll my eyes. I just find it hilarious how Trudeau can't even be honest for one. But yeah, we'll see if there's gonna be a motion, a non-confidence motion put forward. So I also want to point out what Pierre said when, and I'll replay it here just so you can hear it again, when he said, obviously the carbon tax is not working because we're still having flood, we're still having forest fires. So he's basically saying Trudeau is proving his point that the tax isn't working.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just proved my point. His tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts. All it does is create more poverty. This also from a high-flying, high-taxing, high-carbon hypocrite who flew 92,000 kilometers in a fuel-guzzling, tax-funded private jet while he taxes single moms and seniors for heating their homes. Now, carbon tax Carney wants him to put the tax back on home heating oil. Will he reject carbon tax Carney and instead allow Canadians to choose to axe the tax?
Okay, so some of you might not understand the reference to carbon tax Carney. Trudeau recently hired Mark Carney to be he appointed him the economic advisor. So Mark Carney, it used to be one of Justin Trudeau's old friends. So, but there's quite a bit of stories that are going around that right now because everyone's wondering, because Trudeau is littered with scandals. You're wondering, why is he doing this? What's he benefiting out of this? So there's a bit of stories that are coming up. The one on the screen is one of them. So I guess looks like Trudeau appointed economic advisor Mark Carney caught up with his Telesat CEO Friends Ridley just a few months before his company was given $2 billion from taxpayers. In fact, small world. If you don't follow Andy Lee, I highly recommend you do. She exposes a lot of the money behind and the fraud that happens within government. Sometimes I wonder where she gets this information. She must spend a lot of time searching things, but I think he brought him in to keep him close because I think Trudeau fears him in the sense that it's like that concept, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. So there was talks a while back if Trudeau was ever to step down, who would replace him. And there was a lot of talk of Mark Carney being the one that would replace him. So, and Mark Carney is one of Trudeau's old friends. I don't necessarily think that Justin Trudeau is going to step down. I honestly think he's too much of a narcissist for that. I think he'll refuse to step down. He would rather probably take the party down with him. You see that with people with that kind of personality. But we're going to listen here. There's a video. Another good person to follow is Kat Canada. She posts a lot of really good
And Justin Trudeau, he's just gone carbon tax.
Here's another video where Pierre Poilievre talks about Mark Carney's position on climate change and carbon tax. He's even saying that Mark Carney is even more radical than Trudeau. So if they are thinking of replacing Trudeau with Mark Carney, I think it's going to be important for the public to know that Mark might actually be worse. I actually think Mark would be way worse for other reasons. I think because he's actually very, very smart. He's a very smart, calculated, strategic person versus I don't believe Trudeau to be any of that. So if the Trudeau government was to replace Trudeau, or if the Liberal Party was to replace Trudeau with Mark, I think we might actually be in for a worse case scenario for Canada, even worse than with Trudeau being in government. But here, let's hear what Pierre has to say about Mark Carney, or carbon tax Carney, as he calls him.
It's crazy. We saw what he did. We saw what he did at his caucus meeting. it wasn't just Rocky. They brought out another celebrity, Carbon Tax Carney, right? Just to show how obsessed Trudeau is with the tax, he brought in one of the greatest carbon tax supporters in the world, Carbon Tax Carney, who said in his book, "The Canadian federal carbon pricing framework is a model for others. One of the most important initiatives is carbon pricing. The best approach is a revenue-neutral, progressive carbon tax." Right. And of course, right, the revenue-neutral carbon tax, like Ogopogo, the Loch Ness Monster. You hear about them, but you never actually see it anywhere. And so Carbon Tax Carney has one disagreement with the Trudeau government. He was against pausing the carbon tax on home heating. Carbon Tax Carney's only disagreement is that he wants the carbon tax to be bigger and higher and apply to more things. And now he's the one advising Justin Trudeau on the economy. Has he not read the Finance Department report, which showed that the carbon tax is subtracting $25 billion from our GDP, about $1,400 per family this year alone, a number that will rise to an annual $30 billion a year. If he had any economic prowess at all, he would stop being Carbon Tax Carney, he would break off with this costly coalition government, and he would understand that the only future for our economy and our country is the common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
I'm curious to see if when Pierre Poilievre is going to challenge Trudeau and bring forth a non-confidence vote in the Ledge, and to see if that will go ahead and trigger an election. I've spoken to a few MPs who, just to get their feel of what they think is coming, and they're saying more early spring. And I think, if I'm being completely selfish here, I'd be okay with early spring, only because we're so busy with provincial, school board, and civic elections in Saskatchewan right now. I don't want to add on more to the workload, but yeah, so the early spring, or actually early new year, I'd be okay, or even just after the provincial election. But I don't know if we'll see it happening that soon. But the other part of me is like, let's have it as soon as possible, because the longer we have the Trudeau NDP government in power, the more Canada goes down the drain. So let me know what you think. Do you think we're going to have an election this fall, the early spring, or maybe next fall? When do you think it's going to happen? Also, if you want to hear more about what's happening in Canadian politics, catch up on what is happening all over Canada, especially in Saskatchewan, click follow and subscribe to this channel, as I'll be creating even more regular content to try to keep Canadians a little bit more informed. See you guys.